Okay, so welcome back to this video. Today's video is going to be a lot more moving around and interactions because I will be using the whiteboard today and hopefully show you some calculations. So if you have missed the previous video on the 3 basic financial statements that you must create for your business plan, then make sure to check that out first before you continue with this video. Because in this video, we're going to take it one step further and we're going to be talking about financial ratios that are absolutely key to understand the vital signs of your business and how healthy your financial plans are, or how healthy your current financial situation is. Before we get to the whiteboard, I just want to say that if you are not sure about these financial calculations, feel free to reach out to me. Don't just struggle alone. So you can leave a comment, you can drop me a message. You can also support me in my work and, let me know what else you want to learn about. So the first one is to understand is the liquidity ratio. And like I said, liquidity is important for the business because it tells your ability for short-term obligations to meet, and that being said, that must happen without raising external capital. So what are the assets that are available already in your business that you can liquefy and meet short-term obligations without raising external capital? The most commonly used ratio in this scenario is the current ratio. Current ratio shows your ability to pay off any short-term liabilities with your short-term assets. So I will show you the calculation in just a minute, but I want to make a note that once you calculated this, and if your ratio is at least 1 or more, so or higher, that is considered as a healthy ratio. I can't speak and write at the same time. I just realized that. You need to know how much is the worth of your short-term assets. So let's say your short-term assets worth £100,000. That you will divide with your short-term liabilities, and let's say your liability payments is just half of that. We're just going to use easy numbers so everyone can understand. Then this ratio would mean a 2:1 ratio, right? Because you have twice as much assets than liabilities. So this means a healthy liquidity ratio. Now, that being said, obviously this is one super idealistic situation that I showed you, but what happens if these two numbers actually equals out? That means you can still pay off any short-term liabilities with your short-term assets. So if I have £100,000 worth of assets and I have to pay off £100,000 worth of liabilities, that means I can still pay for it, right? Because it's exactly the amount that I need. But if this would be much higher than as many assets I have, then the liquidity ratio of the company is below 1, right? So anything below 1 is really bad. So you will need to increase your short-term assets in order to be able to pay for any sort of short-term liabilities. Now, if you actually calculated this and you realize that your company indeed have a bad liquidity ratio, then I have a couple tips on how to improve this, because this is definitely something you must take on board as soon as possible and fix. So the first thing that you can do is that you need to reduce your debt. So by paying off liabilities, that will help you to improve your liquidity ratio. And another thing that you can do to help paying off any sort of debt that you have is by acquiring long-term financing that has a lower interest rate. So if you're thinking about using your overdrafts, for example, that will always have a higher interest rate compared to a long-term financing plan that will have a lower interest rate, right? So any sort of high interest rate you should avoid completely, especially if your ratio is really, really, really low. The third thing that you can do is managing your invoices and staying on top of your invoices. So managing and optimizing your payables and receivables is definitely an important step here. A fourth thing that you can do is to improve your ratios is to reduce any sort of overheads and cost cutting. So you can review your inventory, you can review your purchasing, you can also look into your supply chain management and see whether you can cut back costs and reduce any overheads, unnecessary overheads. So inventory management is definitely something that I would highly recommend for you to look into, because that level, the inventory levels, are directly affected by any sort of market demand. So if you review your market demand and how do you actually manage inventory and how do you create your procedures around inventory, that can help you to identify cost-cutting opportunities. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic, which is going to be your profitability ratio.